Opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Wednesday in the Riv after a
I don't know what to call it.
A Clowncil meeting and a budget. Listen, we got to get into some numbers because this budget hearing, these things are absurd, and I love the way they just manipulate numbers and nobody ever accounts for it. But first, I think I've heard a few people calling about the behavior of a particular city councilor.
Yep.
Behaving like a child.
Yep. And
a petulant child at that, and also an elitist. When and I actually caught a little bit of it. I went back and I don't like to watch those things because
you got to pluck your eyeballs out.
Now, yeah, I got to stick pins in my eyes, or I'll break my television. I want to throw a ball-peen hammer, and I got a nice big HD TV because I like to watch sports, and boxing, and things on a nice big screen. So I got a really big HD, and I don't want to throw a ball-peen hammer in a fit of rage watching these people behave, but. Somebody told me she was literally banging on the desk like a child. Yep. Look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, I'm here. You can't look at anybody else. That's it. I guess that's what she was doing. Because, that's the behavior. No wonder she didn't get elected, and that's why she shouldn't get elected, because it's obvious there's a vendetta against a councilor who's trying to make things equal and fair and worried about the taxpayers' money, but you could tell the coven was in action yesterday, and she is not a good representative. The other ones can at least give the pretense that they're doing this for some reason, but what I saw was her go, oh, I wish I had hair because I could throw it like she did. Just this wokey, like. Oh, well, let's talk about this when the money gets approved, and then we can amend this so we can give money to anybody we want and all our friends. That is okay. Remember, before you start bitching and threatening lawsuits, remember what Joe Cavallo read yesterday at the city council meeting. As long as it's not, he read the Supreme Court decision. And I'm not threatening. I'm just observing. You're a disgrace, Councilor Washington. You're a disgrace. You acted like a petulant child. And anybody who disagrees with you, you're not even a good enough politician. That's the great thing about really good politicians. You ever notice that? They could hate you and stuff, but they will never show. They'll never show it. They will just, interesting.
Or worse, they smile at you.
And then they look and they pat you on the back.
Right.
And they're looking for the soft spot. And I'm telling you, this is true because I've interacted with some of the greatest politicians in the world that were absolute masters at that. Tommy Finneran. Billy Bolger. Now, we used to have a legislators' night in Boston every year. We used to bring our reps, and we used to sit with these guys. They were up at the dais, and those guys, both Finneran and Bolger, they both could have had a job in the entertainment field. Those guys could get up at a microphone, tell stories, tell jokes, and people would just love it. They hated them at the beginning. By the end, they were infatuated. These guys, and Tommy used to sit with us a lot when he came to Fall River at various political functions because he loved firefighters, and he came to the firefighters' table all the time. So we sat with him a few times. I'll tell you what, one of the funniest, engaging personalities I have ever run into. But everybody knows, as the Speaker of the House, he was one of the most vicious. If you cross Tommy Finneran,
You got nothing.
you got nothing. He even stopped the football. Remember? He stopped Robert Kraft's idea. Not the governor, not the president of the Senate. Tommy Finneran single-handedly put the kibosh on that. But I'll tell you what, if you sat at a table with him, I mean, he was the consummate entertainer. But, you know, that kind of behavior is just, you're going to talk about people misbehaving? And it used to kill me when I used to tell people, you can't say anything about this. You can't talk. We can't be censured. We can behave any way we want. Well, no, you can't. Have some decorum. You're there as the representative of people of Fall River. Don't act like a petulant child. Banging on the desk. God, I'm telling you, I just had to get that one out because
I called you.
I know you.
I called you last night. In regards.
And I didn't answer my.
No. I called
my
you
crazy phone.
No, I called you last night. You answered the phone, and we talked about misrepresentation of some numbers.
Yeah, and I've done some research. We've got to do more because obviously it was last night. Mm-hmm. And from what I've been told is that the school department did not say there was a 10% increase. The school department said last year there was a 10% increase.
And this year will be the same.
That's not what I was told. I was told and they said this year there will be an insignificant or no increase on their side.
Yeah, meaning it's the same.
It's the same.
Yep.
So,
which is 10.3%.
But it's not 10%.
Right.
It's 2.5%. Now, I don't know where they get these numbers because I think they're pulling a Mary Sahadi. And that guy, their treasurer, that's the guy that didn't understand that group insurance is a group, that they were yelling. Remember 3 or 4 years ago, they were screaming about, our claims, we can't pay. Of course you can play your claims, you dimwit. This is a group. And this is the thing. It's only for paper. It's only for accounting purposes. They put these numbers in the different departments. Healthcare is a group. It's group insurance. The trust fund does not have a trust fund for the teachers, a trust fund for the police, a trust fund for the firefighters, a trust fund for DCM. No, it's a group. And he didn't even get it after we had a meeting with him that time, and I explained to him, what you're trying to say is that it's like taking the leper colony in Molokai and running their healthcare claims separately. That's called, as you know, because you're in the field, adverse selection.
Correct.
So you create an adverse selection pool. So if you took their bills out, of course, they're going to be astronomical because they're all lepers, like their ears fall off as they're walking down the street and their nose falls off. And obviously they've got very, very high bills. But that leper colony is part of the state of Hawaii's group health care.
Right. And
that's the concept of health care. You get as big a group as you can so the young, healthy people
pay for the sick people.
They help stabilize the cost for the sick, for the older people.
Right.
And then when they become old, they're replaced by younger people. And that's the way you stabilize premiums. And the irony is that our health care, we're paying less than we did 10, 12 years ago. I mean, this is the most stable thing this city has ever seen, and it's been like that for decades.
But we don't know where the money's going.
And when they misrepresent this stuff and start using these numbers, because, listen, remember what Mary Sahadi did? She admitted that $45 million was not for health care. It was for stop-loss insurance. It was for all these ancillary things.
Right.
That's got to be a separate line item.
That's right.
Because as a fiduciary, our CFO and the treasurer of the school department has a fiduciary obligation to be accurate with all the numbers and break them down. But I have a picture. Somebody just sent me a picture of the city's presentation and what does I got a picture to slide. And, you know, I won't even read it. Just read what that says, CJ, at the top of that thing. Can you read that?
Fiscal year 2024 budget estimates are just over $352 million in expenses.
But what is the heading?
Budget assumptions.
Assumptions. Okay. You know what assumption means? You also know what the definition of assume means? Break it down. You make an ass out of you and me. That's what you do. It's an assumption. And these assumptions align in their pockets. And I'm going to go over a little bit of it, okay? This is a... La, 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 the dancing papers we have here. And I think that maybe Kuganokio might have a press release on this by Friday. I don't know. But this is a release for fiscal year 2024 health insurance renewal for active plans, which they were talking about yesterday, correct?
Right.
Okay. La, 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 la. Okay, and this is from the company that does this, and their numbers are always dead accurate because they can't give us assumptions.
Right.
They have to actually give us actual numbers. All right, I'm gonna go over this, and this is on the paper, and I actually, they will see this at the budget hearings because I'm going to give them all this stuff. All right, these are the numbers. We went back a little bit in the way back machine, not too far back, but we know that 12 years ago we were paying. But we went back, fiscal year 20, okay? FY 20. Projected loss ratio, 95.2%. Ratio loss, 91.8. I know this is a lot of numbers, but we'll get right into the numbers. Okay, FY 20, funding surplus. Year end, $3,028,489. That's our surplus.
Right.
That was our surplus in 20, okay? And at the 6-month mark, we were only, at 7 months into that plan year, we were only 225,947. But we ended up with 3.2 overall. Okay. FY 21. Okay. $4,952,171 at 7 months into the planned year. Year end, $6,594,031. FY 22. $767,070 at 7 months in the planned year. $3,365,219. Now, 2023, 6 months into it. We don't have a final number yet, but we will. $3 million, the largest ever. $3,426,156 at the 6-month mark, which is almost larger than the entire year's savings. So, without the rest of the year's savings, but we're looking at these benchmarks, we're on the way to a $6 or $7 million surplus if the trends continue. So we'll make that projection, not an assumption. We'll see what the numbers. But what we have now for 21, 20, 21, 22, and 6 months of 23 is a surplus of $16,393,945. I want to know where this money went.
I want to know too.
Because every year when they ask the city how much they got in their health care account, they go, I don't know, 400,000, 500,000. Well, they're stealing the money. I want someone to ask the CFO if she's ever seen a community that had an obligation to fund health care premiums and it was a contractual benefit that was approved by the city council to fund it. Just took money out of that fund, and there's never anything left. They never reinvested in health care. That's only the beginning, because we got other numbers. Over $40 million we saved from the Canadian drug plan. Another tens of millions we've saved with our PBRX benefit manager, and rebates from there, and I got a whole list of them in here with the rebates, but I got all the numbers. So the school department's saying it's 24,000. This year's total projection city share is 34,349,968, and that is not an assumption. That's the numbers. That's the numbers that were presented, and those are the numbers that were approved. But, you know, we're looking at, my God, I've got to do it, you know, a finite number, because I'm going to get all the final numbers on how much we saved with the PBRX, with the Canadian Drug Plan, and all the other plans and all the rebates we've gotten. And I'm going to get that total for the past 5 years. And then I want somebody in that city council to say, where the you-know-what is that money? Because all they do is blow it. And I heard that she actually said they were bargaining with PERAC to try to kick the can down the road and pay less in so they can spend more. Number one, they can't bargain with PERAC. City does not bargain with PERAC. The retirement board determines that, and we work with PERAC. They send down a number. And from 02 to 12, they underfunded it, and we are now 349th out of 351 because of what they did in that 10-year period, and we're trying to claw our way back. And if you, and we've already taken a vote, by the way, so I'm going to save you the trouble, Bridget. It's not going to fly. We already said we're not kicking a can down the road. You've already done enough damage to the retirement system and people like you. Lambert croaked it, and now you're trying to croak it even more. What are you shooting for? 351st out of 351? This is absolutely outrageous. It is gross mismanagement and fiscal irresponsibility that I have never seen in the 40 years I've been dealing with this stuff. I have never seen anything like it.
You know, what's interesting is I spoke to a previous mayor. You were there when we spoke to the previous mayor. And he turned around and he said that the one thing he could never get about the Fall River budget was it moved around. It was like a puzzle that just kept moving around. The pieces just kept moving around. And it's true.
Yeah,
it's true. And we see that every city council meeting when you see transfers of money from this account to this account and this account to this account. Okay? Because they don't budget properly.
Well, see, but that's the problem. But they're not called on it, because who's supposed to call them on it?
The city council.
They are the fiduciaries of the city.
That's right.
But look, Mary Sahadi was caught lying about the amount, 7.5% rather than 4%. She needed 45 million. It was only 40, and then she took 39. And you think there was a follow-up question like, you know, Mrs. Sahadi, you're supposed to be the CFO of this city, and you're giving us erroneous figures? You know, you can't do that. A budget is supposed to be a budget. You budget this thing. So you're gonna stick in insurances and everything else on it to inflate the number. And then are you gonna still have an appropriation for that thing that you added to that too? This is what they do. This is why they are paranoid about a forensic audit, because they may, you know, I'm not going to say the city council knows this, because most of them, you know, they're about 17 cans short of a six-pack, okay? So I don't expect them to know this, especially the podium pounder over there. So I don't expect them to know much, but it's their job to learn, and they're not. They never, ever ask a follow-up. They never say, where is the money? When Kathy Ann Viveris got up and said, we got $500,000 left in our health care fund, and we had almost 10 million, you think somebody'd say, aren't you supposed to have 3 times as much as them? Don't you ever put money back into health care? Because if they actually did that, we could go 10 years without having an increase in the cost of health care and not having the city's portion go up at all, because we have ours, and it's only, they don't do it because they're nice people. It's statutory. Chapter 32B. Go look it up. I'm not going to give you the section. I know it, but I'm not going to go look it up. They're obligated to create an independent, separate employee trust fund. And the way that trust fund and what it does is statutory, and that's the way they do it. But do you think that the city, with all the millions of dollars that we've had over these years, would leave a little bit to collect interest to help healthcare? No, they're going to try to crash healthcare the way they crashed the retirement system, and then they'll come out with more increases in premiums and crappier plans to screw the employees because of their mismanagement of funds.
Which they're trying to do now.
Okay, everybody, bend over, grab your ankles, because here they come. And I'll tell you, nobody's asking any questions, and they're already trying to muddy the water with these assumptions. Oh, assumptions.
You see, if I were a city councilor, when they send over a transfer, I would turn around and say, didn't you budget this? Didn't you budget this? There should be no transfers. This should be budgeted. This should be done.
Well,
and I would oppose any transfers whatsoever.
Well, we all know what Newton does.
Right.
Newton says, okay, give me a budget, every department. Tell me what you're going to do this year. Tell me what you didn't do last year that you said you were going to do, and give me a reason why you didn't do it. And now that's your budget. If anything outside of what you put on this paper comes up, you're not getting any money unless it's an unexpected and unforeseen catastrophe. That's the way they run Newton. But then again, that's why Newton's got all the rich people there with the money. They look over their money.
That's right.
The poor people are too worried about trying to pay their rent, and they let these maniacs in that chamber just completely throw money out. Let's hope everybody wakes up, because this is what they do. Budget time is coming, and there will be a reckoning at this budget hearing.
Well, I'll tell you right now, the last two budgets, the mayor came out with them early.
Yep.
If you remember. And the 45-day clock starts the day he comes out with the budget.
Yep.
Which takes a lot of time away from the city council, which I think is unfair and potentially illegal. Okay? Yeah. And you notice I said potentially. I didn't say it is.
Yeah.
And if the city council doesn't act in 45 days, the budget just goes into effect, according to Rumsey.
Yeah, well,
which I don't believe too much.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Because the city council controls the budget. And personally, what I want to see happen when the charter comes up for review, not this review, because this is a useless review. You can't do anything. Can't put anything before the city council. Can't put anything before the voters. So it's useless. The 10-year review is the one that you can make changes. I think one of the things that we need to do is put in there that if the city council fails to act on the mayor's budget at 45 days, the budget does not go into effect. And the city must run on a 1/12 budget.
You're right, and I'm trying to look up something, but just to say, it's not just my opinion. I mean, it is my opinion. She acts like a petulant child, and she's a total dope, and that's my opinion, and I'm entitled to it according to the Supreme Court of the state of Massachusetts, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, state of Massachusetts. But it's not only me. I'm just looking over a couple of my texts, and because people do text us all the time.
All the time.
So I got a few of them yesterday, but this was the best one. I'm watching a city council meeting. That Laura Washington is a serious dope. So it's, clean up your act. Try to behave like an adult. I would love to have you at a negotiating table and see the kind of gyrations I'd put you through. But that's the way it is.
I think you'd win your negotiations, too.
Yeah, well, she'd be bringing a pencil to a gunfight.
Yep.
She sat at a table. But,
the sad part about it is that she wasn't elected, number one.
Yeah.
Okay? And maybe that was the reason she wasn't elected.
Yeah, because she had a lot of people backing her.
Right.
And she still couldn't climb into even the lower rung.
Exactly. And, I mean, she was a second choice for an appointment. The sad part about it is, though, that the people of Fall River will re-elect her.
Well, let's hope not.
Because they re-elect everybody. Yeah. How many times has Linda Pereira been reelected? How many times has Leo Pelletier been reelected?
But she did get thrown out once.
How many times has Joe Camara been reelected? Yeah. Okay? How many times has Brad Kilby been reelected?
Yeah, but they, remember, Linda did get thrown out in '95. But let's.
Well, so did every other Portuguese guy.
Yeah, let's switch a little gears, because it's already getting, campaign season is here, and we gotta. They're getting, I guess, since Paul doesn't have a record to run on, they're getting desperate. They're already attacking I guess the only, because Jordan hasn't pulled papers yet, has he? Or did
He pulled
Yeah,
papers.
Oh, he did, yeah.
He pulled papers, but he said that he's
said-
got to suspend his campaign because he can't talk on WSAR.
Okay, well, we don't know if he's, so they're already.
And Vandell is supposedly pulled papers as well.
Yeah, they're already starting with their disinformation because, and they're getting, so their desperation is on full view.
Yep.
I got this one yesterday. In case you don't know who that is, that's Mark Monroe Dion. I guess it was on his show, and they have this, you know I don't do like this
Yep.
stuff. They have commentary and
Right.
stuff like that. So I don't know the whole. I'm going to check into this, but somebody named Derek Fuller, which could be a phony ID here. Do not vote for hashtag Sam Sutter for mayor. Isn't that the guy who helped New Bedford PD and the city of New Bedford help cover up the slaying of young hashtag Malcolm Garcia? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Now, isn't it amazing that he's already discounted his ability to vote? He's just trying to plant a seed here.
Right.
But he doesn't even know if that's true.
Correct.
He frames it in a form of a question, but his heading is don't vote for this guy based on the fact that
It might be what I'm saying.
it might be true.
It's another assumption.
Well, another assumption. Well, I started doing a little bit. I haven't had a lot of time to do. And I did something. I looked up I looked up the case. This is 2015 now. We're going back. We're going back a ways, almost a decade. So, and this is what I got, and I made some notes. And there is a New Bedford Standard Times. There's a few
Yep.
articles. There was a couple of suits filed. Malcolm Garcia, I guess. Yeah, Garcia. It's not Garcia. It's Garcia. Was a mentally unstable 15-year-old who was shot by police after stabbing Detective Tyson Bonds multiple times. And it was during the spring of 2012, Bill McCauley and Pat Bomberg, who prosecuted the Aaron Hernandez case, so they're pretty decent prosecutors, did a thorough investigation and ruled the shooting be justified. The Boston Globe, which is one of the articles I read, did a major investigative story about it in 2021. And they basically just said, everything was on the up and up. Well, prosecutors prosecute.
Right.
So these two guys, so obviously Sutter was the DA, obviously, but he didn't even prosecute the case.
Right.
He gives it to his prosecutors. His prosecutors do their job to prosecute the case. So obviously there was enough evidence, and you can, there's always going to be, you shouldn't have, you couldn't have, you did, and there was a civil suit, and I don't think the civil suit played out too well. I'm trying to still get the resolution of the civil suit, and we know that the threshold is much lower on a civil suit.
Right.
And, but this is the kind of crap they're going to start throwing out now. They're going to go back 15 years. Well, all I found in those years was a lot of articles about how he was cutting crime.
Right.
And lowering gun violence. So, I mean, if we want to compare negatives and positives, this was not a good move, by the way.
No, it's not. Especially when Sam has a track record of fighting crime.
A stellar track record.
A stellar track record, true. I mean, and I've read the articles in the Herald News and the Standard Times, in Attleboro. There are articles everywhere about how good of a job he's doing on, stopping crime, beating crime, and taking control of the crime, because crime was on an uptick.
Oh, it was pretty bad at that period.
When he took office, so it made for an interesting time. Well, everyone, I want to thank you for watching, and remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. We'll see you on Friday.